Hi, and welcome to Growth Talks podcast. It's a place where you find tools, techniques, ideas, suggestions, advice, and so much more on personal and professional growth coming from different experts in these areas. Today is a special episode for me because I have a chance to talk to one of my very, very close friends, somebody I share so many memories with and a lot of experience. And it is a pleasure to have her here today. Maria, welcome to the podcast.
Thank
From
you.
what I gathered and based on our previous talk, right now you're a career and performance partner, correct? And you're
Yeah.
also a certified coach, right?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to let you do a short introduction. Can you just share it with us um, a little bit about yourself?
Okay. First of all, thanks for having me on this podcast. It's a pleasure to talk to you. Um, as you said, so currently I work as a career and performance partner. Previously, I was an HR business partner. I work in an international software development company. And 2 years ago, I've decided to specialize and focus more on career and performance topics,
Mhm.
which is why I'm currently here. And in the meantime, I was attending a training from Gallup. So now I'm a Gallup certified coach and a career coach.
Oh, very nice. And precisely because you're a career coach, I wanted us to talk a little bit about career today. So you said career and performance. Maybe we can do performance at a later date, but today I'd like us to start with career. So,
Mhm.
we all want to have our careers, whatever that means for each and every one of us. Let's start from the perspective of an organization first.
Mhm.
So, what would you say, based on your experience and your knowledge, why why is it important for an employer to invest in career development of their
Mhm.
employees?
Mhm. Well, there are many reasons. The first reason I would say is that research has shown, or surveys have shown, that one of the top reasons people leave companies is actually lack of career development opportunities. So I would say this is the first reason. The second one is that employees, people, they want to work in roles that give them the opportunity to play to their strengths and their interests, and
Mm,
this is a part of career development within a company. So if a company doesn't offer this, a lot of people would then choose something else. Um, Being in a wrong role or having lack of opportunity to develop in a company may lead to lack of motivation, lack of engagement, sometimes even burnout if you're in a completely wrong role.
right,
You have poor performance, and all of this impacts, as I said in the beginning, retention.
right.
We all know that it is very costly to replace an employee who leaves a company, money-wise, but also time-wise, because you need to onboard another person and go through the hiring process all over again. It is also time-consuming to actually manage poor performance,
Mm,
which is also something that people don't think about. But if you have
mm,
someone who is not a great performer, you need to manage this person.
right,
Uh,
right.
some other reasons that come to my mind are also brand image. People
Uh-huh.
who leave companies, now we have all these websites where they share reviews or their experiences with the company. So people leave actually reviews saying, I didn't have lack of opportunities, and this has also impact on future hirings. So yeah, there are a lot of reasons. We have been hearing a lot about quiet quitting,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
there's also this, yeah.
Actually, can you just share very briefly what that actually means? I've been finding different things on it, and now that you mention it, would you mind just sharing what that refers to and what it's all
Yeah.
about?
So from my experience, quiet quitting, how I would say it is basically when people decide that they're gonna quit because they're unhappy. So they slowly just they don't communicate, they don't ask for other development opportunities or for something to change in the company. They just slowly start searching for other options and they quit. You would say you with this as a surprise,
Uh-huh,
which is not
uh-huh.
basically a surprise. But you also have, I heard this phrase, it's called quit and stay, which is
Okay.
where basically people quit, they give up, but they are still there. And this is what leads to, as I mentioned before, poor performance, for example, or lack of
Right.
motivation and complete lack of engagement.
Right, right. And now that you're talking, I'm thinking, please correct me if I'm wrong, but um, we usually think about when we think about an investment, it's mostly financial, like paying for stuff, right? But it doesn't always have to mean financial investment. Investing in
Mm-hmm.
somebody's growth can mean pairing a person with the right manager or pairing a person with the right team. So in addition to having the knowledge of the field where they specialize, also broadening your soft skills or learning how to be a team player, things like that that are not related per se to the knowledge base, but they
Mm-hmm.
are
Yeah.
common knowledge, so to speak. Does that, I mean, this is my take on it. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, definitely, definitely. And I can talk about that as well. This is very important, this manager support that it is there.
Mm,
And it, of course, resources are important. Very often we hear, what if I develop them and they leave?
yeah,
But
right.
if we don't develop people, they will definitely leave.
Or they will
And
stay.
or they will stay, as I mentioned before. Exactly. And this is where this manager support is key. And it is resources, yes, but it's much more this meaningful conversation with your manager so that your
Mm,
manager actually shows interest in your development,
mm,
uses their network maybe to help you develop, to help you think about your and the switch, in my opinion, crucial is this switch from manager being just a boss, a manager, to manager being a coach.
mm.
So this is something that plays a key role, in my opinion, when we talk about career development within a company.
Right. Uh, it's a little bit off uh, our main topic, but since you mentioned manager as a coach, how often do you see this from your experience? Are we really making that transition? Has it started happening? How frequent is it? Do you have any knowledge on that?
Yeah, so I've experienced both. Usually, I have to say, younger managers
Hmm.
tend to be more interested in these topics, so attending also trainings or gaining knowledge on how to improve their management. And it also depends, I guess, on a role and how much time
Uh-huh.
you're given as a manager. How much time can you actually dedicate as a manager to learning all this and practicing and actually implementing it. Um, it has always been a question, how much of their time should the managers spend with
Yeah.
managing people and how much time should they spend on the things that they have done before.
Right, right. And funny that you mentioned that. I actually had a talk about that yesterday with one of my clients, but even when I was a manager, I'm a people manager. My focus has always been on the people because I believe if you develop the people, you get the results, right?
Yeah.
But there's always, in my opinion, it's always been from my experience as a former manager, so long as your results are not suffering. So long as you're meeting the company goals, the deadlines, the expectations, your results are the way they should be or above average or just average,
Mm-hmm.
whatever the expectation is. I think you're doing a good balance. You have a good
Mm-hmm.
balance of dedicating your time to the people and the task at hand. Personally, I've always said that management is 10% managing tasks and projects and 90% managing people. Um, and you don't have to hold me to percentages, but the point is we really have to invest in understanding who we work with because that's how we get results. You know, you said one of the reasons we need to invest in developing our employees is because they get demotivated, they get bored, or
Mm-hmm.
they don't have opportunities for growth. Well, how are you going to motivate a person if you don't know what they're motivated by?
Exactly.
So that would be, yeah, okay. All right. Well, moving away from managers and going back to the career development, I would like to take a look at, I guess this is more from the perspective of your position, right? As an HR
Mm-hmm.
partner, specialist, whoever's working as in the HR department. What would you say are some of the challenges in developing or creating somebody's career path? As in, when you work with the employees on creating their career paths, what are the challenges that you face?
Okay, I would say the first challenge is to actually align the business goals with the individual's aspirations. So this is one of the first challenges, because it's not, we don't live in this world where I can just choose whatever I want to do. And I mean, you can if you're self-employed, but if you're working for a company, there needs to be this personal organization fit. So
Right.
I would say this alignment that company still has their strategic objectives that they need to reach, but you have to have the flexibility and be able to customize these development plans for with what your employees actually want to do and how they want to develop. So I would say this is a big one. Another challenge is to identify what are possible career paths within your company, within your organization. And this actually means creating a framework and being transparent with your employees, because oftentimes people think, both the company and the employees, this initial, or what is the obvious way to progress is go into a management role, which is this vertical move, which is not the only one. And for some, this is also important. We'll come later to that when we talk about the employees or people. Someone doesn't want to be a manager. Does that mean that they cannot develop, that's it? No. So this is also one of the challenges.
Yeah, I've run into that one. Sorry to interrupt, but
Yeah.
I run into, most of my background is in IT, and I know a lot of technical people, as in, designers, developers, who don't want to be managers. They want to do the work. They like the coding, they like designing, whatever their job is, but they don't have any aspirations to move into that direction. And yet, I think even the business on its own, sometimes business owners or decision makers, they may not be as aware of what other ways to progress there are, if it's not vertical.
Yeah, exactly. And it's okay not to want to be a manager. And just because you're good at what you do doesn't mean that you would be a good manager.
Agreed.
When we're
Agreed.
talking about this as a career development move. This is why it is important to sit down and develop these career paths and think of the experiences that people need to have in order to advance in those different careers, which requires, of course, time. And this facilitating these cross-functional moves is very important. We also have the culture. So the employees need to be the ones who are driving their own cultural career development.
Right. Of course, that absolutely makes sense, because you need to know, even if you don't know what you're interested in, maybe talking to somebody from HR, or just talking to your peers, and figuring out, okay, well, what are different ways that other people grow, or in different companies, how did they go about it? But I completely agree. Let me just interrupt here and ask a question. If you don't have information on this, it's totally fine, but it just crossed my mind. What if you're let's say you're a small team, you're an organization with maybe 5, 10 people. How do you motivate your employees, or what are some of the ways you can use to talk to them about their growth? Because, we join smaller businesses knowing that there's, it's not like a corporation where you can move so much. So I guess we join with the expectation of there not being too much rapid growth, but we still want to see where we can progress. So as a business owner who would have, I don't know, 5, 10 people, how could I go about helping my employees feel that there's still growth there?
I think the first and the foremost thing is what you mentioned. You need to know your people, and you need to encourage them to know themselves so that they can be proactive about it and come to you and say, listen, this is what I want to explore. This is it is also a cultural thing that you allow your people to explore different options.
Okay.
This
Okay.
is, for me, this is the key. And I also think that if we're talking about big corporations, but even the small ones, it should be mandatory for each manager to have a developmental talk with each employee. In some companies, it is a nice to have. It's not mandatory, like, for example, performance assessment or goal setting. Those two are usually mandatory, but development talks are maybe if you have time, it would be nice to have them. But I think this should be mandatory part of performance management. And as I said, being open and honest with your employees, even if you don't have a position, because sometimes you won't be, there won't be an open position to which the people can move, but that doesn't mean that they cannot develop. So this honest and meaningful conversation, okay, currently we don't have an open position, but let's see what can you explore in the meantime. What can help you prepare for this position? Is there something else that you would like to explore?
Yeah, this is actually
Maybe
really good.
shadowing or mentoring or by someone who is in the position. So all these things show that you care about an employee's development and move the development in the right direction, in my opinion.
Right. And thank you so much for sharing that. Based on what you're telling me, it sounds like before we did this talk, to be honest, I was mostly thinking about horizontal and vertical growth, but it's more like changing positions, right? But now that we talk, I realize that there's so much about learning, understanding what your interests are professionally. So what is it that you'd like to learn? What is it that you like to explore? And then because I'm in contact with a lot of solopreneurs or really small businesses, um, for them, I think it's very valuable. You just said the last thing you said, where let's talk. Yes, the business is still growing. I can't have a full-time marketing person and a full-time salesperson, but maybe I can have two in one. Or, what would be your interest in that? Would that be something where you'd like to develop? And then maybe we can sit down, I don't know, a couple of months from today and talk again about the next step or the next thing. Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you so much for sharing that. It's very insightful for me too. So it's great to learn these things. Okay, well, let's shift a little bit to the position of an employee or a person, So I'm interested in my career development. What do you see as some of the main challenges that people face when they think about their careers?
The first thing is falling into a career. A lot of us don't proactively choose our careers. I can also speak for myself. Initially, I pursued a career in teaching, and I somehow fell into it, even though, to be honest, back then I didn't even have probably the mental capacity to sit down and think about all these things. But this is the first one. So people just fall into a career, it happens, there is an opportunity, and they stay there.
Okay.
If we think about it, we spend around 80,000 hours at work.
Wow.
And we rarely, that's what I read somewhere, in our lifetime. And we rarely actually take the time or get the time, the space, and the tools to think about what we really want to do with this time. So I would say these are two of the biggest challenges. And then there is also this, the same as within a company, just thinking about vertical moves. So the only way I can progress or I can develop is if I go up, up, up. And finally, lack of self-knowledge. So not knowing what am I really passionate about, what interests me, what skills and talents do I have. And when I say talent, I don't mean it in a sense of can I play an instrument or am I good at sports? I really mean it in the Gallup sense. So we all possess these natural ways of thinking, behaving, doing. What is the impact that I want to have? What kind of environment do I enjoy working in? So this lack of self-knowledge is also something that I think is poses a challenge for people to think about or switch their careers.
I agree. I completely agree. And we usually think about this understanding of oneself more on a personal level. So we talk about like knowing yourself, but knowing yourself as in
Mm,
who you are, what do you want in life, things like that. Rarely do we think about, okay, well, as a professional, who am I? And not being defined by one position, but more of
yeah.
a what are what's my knowledge so far? What are the skills that I've acquired? And I assume this is even a bigger challenge for people who are just starting out. So, what
Yeah.
position to apply for, unless you're in a very kind of predetermined career from your studies. So let's say, I'm assuming med students, it's kind of, okay, they're going to go into medicine. There may not be too many other options, but then again, within medicine, I'm assuming there's a gazillion things they can do. But then you have, like I have a teaching degree as well, and, but I'm not teaching. However, I took the skills from teaching that I've learned over time, and I applied it to my management positions, now through coaching, even these interviews. You have to know how to ask a question. You have to be comfortable sharing. You have to be comfortable making mistakes. And I think these are the skills we pick up as we go through our education, right? But
Yeah, yeah.
how do we go about it? Do you have
I
any?
just
Go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to say, because you said this is specific, also, or at least more relevant for those people who are just starting out. Not necessarily, because going
Okay.
back to what I said previously, falling into a career, you can have senior people who have never given it a thought what they actually enjoy doing. So they just do what they have been doing for the past, I don't know how many years. It is this finding the time to actually think about what am I passionate about? Because if you
Mm.
started maybe even earlier, so even senior people, it is important that they have this conversation with themselves or with the coach, but to explore this. And also, if you the more senior you are, you get to a point where you just want to do something else, maybe.
Oh yeah,
But you
I
have
completely
less
understand
people
that.
to talk to about because you're at this high position, so you don't feel maybe very comfortable talking to others about it. There are certain
Mm.
expectations maybe of you, so it's not only for those who are just starting out.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. When you put it that way, I completely agree.
Yeah,
Look, honestly, I think we should be, well, not questioning our choices, but we should be thinking about where we are
yeah,
as much as we can or as often as we can,
regularly. Yeah,
right? It doesn't mean you will change. If you're happy where you are with the position you
exactly.
are, the job you're doing, wonderful. That's amazing. But if you're not, know that there's a way to do something different.
Yeah,
And I think now that you mentioned the senior positions, senior levels, that may pose even a bigger challenge as in, well, I've come this far. I can't
exactly,
I can't change now. Or
exactly.
what do I start from scratch? I can't start from scratch. Or, it's maybe too late to change now. I don't have any other skills, or this is all I know. So I can absolutely see some of the concerns that one would
Yeah.
have in those positions. Okay, well, how do we go about it? Be it whether you're just a starter or a senior, what would be your tips on
Mm.
how to think about our career growth?
I think the most important thing is finding or taking the time to sit down. And I would start, so I can talk about tools right away. So the first one would be to look at what skills you have,
Hmm.
what are your passions, what are your interests,
Hmm.
what is the impact that you want to have, and what kind of environment uh, are you looking for? So what
Right,
is the environment that will enable you to thrive?
right.
Once you know, or at least get closer to knowing yourself a bit better in these aspects, it would make it a bit easier to choose a role or a career.
Mm.
Um,
If I
mhm.
may jump in,
Yeah,
you mentioned what skills we have, and just so maybe there's somebody out there, because I'm wondering sometimes as well. Usually the skills we think about are I'm good at time management. I can organize myself well. I can I don't know. I can delegate well. So it's like I think we're very focused on skills as in what we're taught, right?
mhm.
So skill is time management, skill is communication. But is there anything else that we need to pay attention to when we're thinking about the skills?
Yeah, so this is why I really like the Gallup approach, and I wanted to be Clifton Strengths certified coach because their approach is a bit different. I'll just take a personal example. I was never a big fan of networking. I never really enjoyed big events where I had to interact with a lot of people. And then I did the test, and it came out that because you have 34 possible strengths, mine is relator. So this is a person who builds one-on-one relationships. And I can connect with that much more, and I can use it. This is something, first of all, it might even be, it's somewhere in between a skill and a passion. So this is something that I actually enjoy doing, but I can also use it as my skill and to help me define what kind of areas I want to work in. Because I would not thrive somewhere where I would have to daily interact in an event, in I don't know, doing events or something like this. This is not an environment for me. So knowing yourself in that respect is very important. Or you have, for example, people who are more focused on the future and seeing the possibilities and future oriented. And you have people who actually look at the history and then they learn from what has happened and analyze the history. So also different perspectives. You can have both, maybe it depends, or you can just be focused on one or the other. But this is also a skill that would then be used, or a talent in your job. And also when you're thinking about skills, it's one thing to have a skill, but it's another to think about what skill do I want to use going forward. You can have many skills, but you can say, okay, listen, I've done this, but I don't want to be doing this anymore. I'm good at it, but it doesn't bring me joy.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Yes. We do that a lot in coaching, just going through, yes, figuring out what is it that excites you. And if you have to do something that doesn't, then okay, well, how do I go through it so that I don't suffer all the way through? But yeah, I think it's very important that you mentioned that because we do acquire a lot of skills over time, and we may develop different talents, as you say, but it may not be something we want to use moving forward. I even know people who completely switched their careers because they were so passionate about something they never pursued.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, yeah, okay. Great. I love this. Okay. So one way to figure out how we want to grow and develop our career is to sit down and have this, I guess,
Four things.
self-analysis.
Yeah. Four things. So skills, passions, impact, and environment. So I would say this is those are the four most important aspects. Another tool that might help you even discover these things about you is to think about your previous experiences. Even if you have never worked, if for those who are just starting out, for example, think about way back, what projects did you take on at university? And think about all of these experiences. What were the things that you really enjoy doing? What were the skills that you learned? What didn't you enjoy? Because it is just as important to know, okay, this kind of environment where I was micromanaged, of course, no one likes it, but or the environment where I had no interaction with people. I was mostly working on my own. It's not for me. So just think about all the previous experiences. What were the good things? What were the skills? And what was not so great, so that you can eliminate. So this is another tool that you can use to help you discover and gain this self-knowledge.
I love this. One thing that I read somewhere a while ago regarding this particular thing, sometimes we get stuck because we can't seem to list things that we're passionate about or that we're good at. So one piece of advice that I got was, well, ask the people who know you well. It can be close friends, maybe not family because they're very, very close, but even family, I'd say, or colleagues that you're close with, whoever has more in-depth knowledge about you, just ask them what they would say you're good at. And I think it's a good, if you get stuck and don't know where to go, it could be a good way to go about it because one, it feels good to hear that. And then two, it really gets you to think, um, how people see you, right? Or what you're showing to people, I guess. And then maybe even comparing the two lists and seeing whether they're similar, different, what comes out of it.
Yeah, so that leads me to a third tool that I want to mention, and it is important that we get feedback on how we are perceived as well.
Uh-huh.
There's this thing, it's called Dunning-Kruger effect. I don't know if
Okay.
you have heard of it. Um,
Not that I know of.
it's basically it's our cognitive bias to perceive ourselves as better than we actually are because our brain is trying to protect our self-image.
Oh,
So it is
interesting.
actually, yeah, so it is actually a really good idea to ask, if we're talking, for example, in work environment, ask your manager. Maybe you're working on a project, so a project manager or a senior colleague. And one of the tools that Mark Efron mentions in his book, Eight Steps to High Performance, is defining your from and to statements. So where am I now? Where do I want to go? And then in
Okay.
between is the experience map. So what experiences, not skills, experiences do I need to go through in order to get there?
Oh,
And this
okay.
is somewhere where input from someone you have worked with or from someone who knows you well is very helpful to say, okay, if we were talking about the company setting, then they can even your manager could use their perspective or bigger picture and say, okay, this is how I see you. This is what you have been doing so far. This is where you could go because they also have this view of the opportunities within inside the company.
Right. Oh, right, right. They have, I guess, a bigger picture view
Yeah.
um, for a particular business. Okay. I would also say, you mentioned a while back when we started, that it should be up to the employee to drive this career development and growth. In this case, I would say I would encourage you as an employee, go and ask about opportunities. Don't wait to have a performance review or I don't know, that annual meeting that you
Mm.
have every year and this is where you get told what the options are. If you feel that you can do more, better, different, don't wait for a particular moment where you're going to be told what the next thing is. Go and ask or
I couldn't
go and
agree more.
yeah, say, hey, this is what I'm interested in. Is there an option in the company for it? Or here's what I'd like to do. Is there any possibility for me to get there? Or how do I get there?
Mm.
Um,
And if we're being honest, this kind of behavior or proactivity is what differentiates high performers or top performers from those who are just doing good work.
right,
It's this drive to actually do something about your career, not just wait and say, my manager didn't tell me that I can advance, or my manager didn't even speak to me. Go and
right,
ask for this conversation.
right, right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes, I absolutely agree. Okay, we're slowly getting it to an end. As you know, we don't want to drag this for on and on,
Yeah.
but even though we could. So before I wrap up for today, at least, are there any tips, anything on your end that I failed to ask about or that you wanted to mention and we didn't have time for it?
No, I think we covered most of the things when it comes to career, both within a company and for individuals. There is nothing I would add. I mean, I could talk about this for hours, but as
Yeah, yeah,
we're time limited, I think these three tools anyone can implement them, be it someone who is starting out, someone who is already senior, or someone who wants to progress within a company or is self-employed or
right.
looking to find their
Oh,
way within a career.
absolutely. And
So
thank you so much for sharing something that seems it seems very simple to do, as in it's an easy tool to use.
yeah,
Now, I'm assuming it takes time to go through it, but
you just need to find time and take time to sit down
right,
and do it, which is,
right,
yeah, the most
right.
difficult part.
Well, I would say, you know what? Hey, schedule time. If career matters to you, if you're feeling dissatisfied or you feel like you can do better, make the time because
Mhm.
your time is in your control, as in how you organize yourself in the time you're given. That's in your control. So, if you're wondering about where you should go next, make time for it. Otherwise, it'll never happen. That's maybe my piece of advice for the people. Okay. Last question on my end is if we want to talk to you, how do we find you? Where do we find you?
You can find me on LinkedIn.
Mhm.
I need to be more active on LinkedIn. That's my plan. That's my goal. After the holiday, it will happen. But yeah, I guess if you want to discuss these topics further, just reach out to me on LinkedIn.
Wonderful. And as you already know by now, we will leave the links in the description so you can find Maria easily. Okay, well, wonderful. Maria, thank you so much for joining today. It's been a
Thank
pleasure
you.
as always. I love the topics that you cover. I am so excited to see what comes out of your career growth for you, but then also I would love, of course, if you're up to it, to talk more maybe about performance next time or whatever else comes
Definitely.
your way. And if you like this content, let us know, like it, subscribe, send us emails, contact us. We're always happy to learn that some topics or what content is best for you. So make sure you like and subscribe so that we can keep offering content like this and then see you in the next episode. Thank you, Maria, once again.
Thank you. Bye.